Hello everyone, Kent Bressler here. I want to welcome you to Kent's Kidney Stories. During our time together over these podcasts, I'd like to discuss kidney disease. I'd like to tell you about my journey as a transplant patient, but also talk about dialysis, kidney donation, and just about anything else that might be of interest. Kent's Kidney Stories, podcast endorsed and sponsored by kidneysolutions.org.
Hello, everybody. This is Kent Bressler. After our prayer, we're going to talk to a gal who's with the AAKP, and it's her kidney anniversary. So we'll be talking to her about that. So let's get started. Let's pray. Lord God, we be grateful for our lot and compassionate toward all of those who are suffering. Those who are suffering from every kind of distress and are in difficult times. May we hold back nothing and hasten to be the ministers of prayer and mercy, like the disciples of you who went about doing good in times of need. Amen. Well, this morning is a kidneyversary, an AAKP kidneyversary. I don't know if that's a word or not, but that's what we call it. And this morning I have Lindsay Graham.
Gath.
Gath. Did I say Graham?
I don't know.
I guess I got politicals on my mind. So sorry about that.
That's okay.
We won't edit that out. That's kind of funny.
That's all right.
Lindsay Gath. Now listen, I have never met you. I have no clue who you are, but I do know that you're a kidney warrior. So that puts us in the same league. And
right.
One of the important things about kidney transplant, in my mind, is that you make it to an anniversary. 1, 2, 3, 4 doesn't really make any difference. So this little vignette that we're going to have today, it's going to be driven on your story, not on my story or not on somebody else's story, but your story, because it's your anniversary. So let's take right off. Tell me a little bit about yourself and give me some background history, and we'll go from there.
All right. Well, I am a 39-year-old mother of 2, and I live in Austin. I had my transplant in San Antonio at university, but I had a kidney disease since I was a kid. I was diagnosed around the age of 11, and it's called Membranoproliferative Glomerulonephritis, and I have type 1, which they go by MPGN. And I was biopsied as a kid after I had gotten real sick, and my doctor sent us on, and ended up with a biopsy, and they diagnosed that it was caused by strep throat. So, and I tend to still get it at least once a year. It just seems to be my nemesis. But after that biopsy and I was diagnosed, I was started on some medications, steroids. They actually tried a 6-month trial with me of cyclosporin at that time. And that all of that combined seemed to stop the inflammation and slow the progression of the disease. And, from there as a kid, I kind of ignored it, kind of like everything I keep hearing, tried to act like a normal kid, didn't really think about it a whole lot because I didn't have a lot of symptoms, at that point, even though I knew I had this. I just went for my regular checkups and life continued on as normal. And during my childhood, I did have 4 biopsies total just to kind of check in on things. And, once they had started the medications to see if they were effective or not. And then I never really had anything else like that until I was an adult. When my husband and I decided to start trying to have kids, I was followed very closely when I was pregnant with my son. And I never really had any problems while I was pregnant with him. I spilled a little extra protein. That seemed to be pretty normal. I already did that anyway. And then when I actually delivered him past my due date. And then when I was pregnant with my daughter a couple years later, I started to have a few more issues while I was pregnant. And at one point, I developed preeclampsia, and my nephrologist told my doctor that it was time for the baby to come out. So they admitted me early and gave me antenatal steroids to help improve her lung function. And she was born at 33 weeks. And so 7 weeks early, and spent some time in the NICU, but she did great. And I recovered, and after that, it's almost like that wasn't really an issue. I just kind of kept seeing my doctor like regular and come in, check up, everything's fine, see you soon, no big deal. I didn't really pay attention to my labs at that point because I didn't know to. Now I do. And then in 2016, when I went for my regular checkup with my nephrologist, I was told that my GFR was about 30 and that I needed to start talking to family and friends about what was going on with me. And that's kind of how he put it. He never really said transplant. He never really said dialysis. And that doctor ended up leaving the practice to go take care of his own father, who was having a lung transplant. So I ended up switching doctors. And the next doctor the next time I went in, he kind of said, it's time to look at dialysis. So it was kind of more of this, shock, I guess. I mean, not really, but I wasn't thinking I was headed that way, because you're just kind of oblivious, I think, when they don't really truly explain it and you don't take the time, and I kicked myself for that. But, what can you do now?
Well, you're sure not unique. There are quite a few people
Right.
that have been through down that road.
Right. Yeah. And it's frustrating to, it's frustrating to hear about. But when I was, told that we might need to start looking at dialysis, I kind of just took that in and thought, okay, well, at the next visit, we'll deal with it. And in the meantime, I had seen a couple of things that just, videos about dialysis, doctors sending you to dialysis. I do my research. So I tend to obsess over a topic if you need to figure something out. So I asked them if they would refer me, to a transplant center. And I was told that I needed to call myself. So I did. I actually called Methodist first because my mother-in-law has actually had a kidney transplant as well. And that's where hers was. She had FSGS. So, and did great there, but I called there first, and I waited a couple weeks and got a letter in the mail saying my insurance wouldn't work there. So I ended up calling university, and I was given an appointment to come in and get evaluated. And I felt like it was just the perfect fit. It was the perfect place. And my husband and my sister went with me on that appointment. And, I ended up going through all the testing and everything was good. And so once I got listed, I started my monthly blood send off, for UNOS, which is so weird to me, to go to a lab and then take your own blood with you and go mail it. That's bizarre to me. But that was what I did. And so once I was listed, then I don't know why I chose to go to Facebook Live, but that's just it just seems natural to me. And I just did it. And it was scary, but I put out there that, this is the situation I'm in, because a lot of people who know me as an adult didn't realize that this was even something that had gone on in my life, that I had chronic kidney disease. And so I put it out there of, this is what it includes to be, or what it entails to be a living donor. And, I didn't ask for donors. I just kind of put out my story, and people would ask. And so I would let them know this is what, being a living donor, what you would go through, or, how you can live with one kidney. And I got a very positive response. I had a lot of people share my video, friends and family that signed up. And I actually had over 40 people, I don't even know the number, that signed up, and people that I didn't even know. A friend of a friend out of state had messaged because her mom was given pancreas and kidney transplant by someone years ago. And she always said she would try and give back to someone. And it was just incredible.
That's kind of gives you a really good feeling in your inside, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Kind of makes you almost makes you want to cry.
Yeah.
But you know, that's the emotion that a lot of transplant patients have. I know I've experienced it over years. I call it that's an emotional rush.
Yes.
Because it's and that's okay. I mean, that's a wonderful thing to have, because that means you're alive inside, right?
Right. Thankfully.
Yeah. And that's the joy of transplant. You get to have those emotions.
Yeah.
You get to live through those, and it makes you a better person.
Right.
So I wanted to ask you a question.
Okay.
I want to ask you, first of all, how young were you when you first found out, when they did your first biopsy? How old were you?
I was 11.
11 years old.
Yes.
How was that for on a scale of 1 to 10? How painful was that for you?
Painful, I would say maybe a 7 or 8. I don't truly remember. I do remember, and I should, but I think I disassociated a lot of things.
Sure.
As a kid, but I do remember them, with the kidney biopsy as a kid. My mom was actually allowed in the room one time with us because she wanted to see how it was done. And they would roll up had this rolled pillow that you would lay on your stomach to push the kidneys back further, and then guide with ultrasound. And so I think that was, comforting. I actually saw, when I was admitted, when they did the biopsies, it was always done at UTMB in Galveston, because at the time there weren't a lot of pediatric nephrologists in Austin. So it was like a clinic that would come once a month and see me here in Austin. And so, they were always done there. And I do remember seeing a child life specialist one time, which is what I'm actually studying right now to become.
Really?
So, yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So, I just think that it was probably an overwhelming experience at that age, of course. But I wish I wish I remembered more of it.
I think that's God's intention that you don't remember it, if you want to be truthful, because that's really not something that it's not. You don't have the coping skills to bury things at that age. You're pretty open, right? So, another thing too, as you progressed, you said something about, dadgummit, I just really didn't think about it. And it wasn't part of me. I mean, I knew I had this thing, but it didn't bother me. I had the same experience. I mean, I just put it off, and I just went on with life, right?
Right. Yeah, because it's not extremely invasive. I mean, that's just like people who don't find out until later, that they've got something going on, because it's not, I mean, you might have some small symptoms, but sometimes it's things you don't even really think about. No,
kidney disease is really a creeper.
Right. Yeah.
It's creepy, and it's a creeping disease.
That's true.
I call it the adjustment disease, because every time your body adjusts to everything that comes along, and with kidney disease, it masks a lot of things, and there's not extreme pain or discomfort. So I mean, so did your mom and dad, how did they handle that? What were they thinking?
I mean, of course, it was very stressful. I know we were worried for a while, and I'm sure my parents were extremely worried, because it was kind of like I presented with just being like sick basically, and they didn't know what was going on. And so it took a while to figure out, of course, lab work figured that out pretty quickly. But when you go to the pediatrician, you think it's probably just something normal, until my mom mentions that, I had been sleeping a little later. I mean, I was 11, and then you wake up and you've got swollen eyes and swollen face and hands and ankles. And
Exactly.
she thought it might just be because I was sleeping heavier, and because you don't think about something like that.
Well, you don't know about it, first of all.
Right.
No
exactly.
clue.
Yeah. And we've never had any sort of kidney issues in our family. So we weren't familiar with that.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of people.
I think that's significant because as it creeps along, those kinds of things start manifesting themselves, and they're always very, it's a good thing to have those symptoms, but a lot of people poo-poo it, and because it goes away, it doesn't always stay there.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So,
and that's why it's easy to ignore if you don't
exactly.
know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then being a kid,
right.
Kids, they don't get sick. Young people don't get sick.
Right.
And they don't want to be sick, and they don't want to tell people they're sick. Yeah. I know I didn't want people to know I had kidney disease, because that was a mark when you try to make a living, you're trying to build a career. Having that kind of thing, I think, in your mind tells you, well, that puts you behind the pack.
Right. Yes. It's very, you don't want to be different.
No, absolutely. So. Perfect. Absolutely. You don't want to be different. Exactly.
Not in that sort of way.
Yeah. You want to make your own decisions, and that's a great point. That's a great point, Lindsay. So your children, is there in the back of your mind, are you thinking, well, gee whiz, we know that a lot of there's not a lot of genetics in these diseases, these nephrotic diseases. There is a component. I know people that have a genetic component, but it's not a big percentage. Right. And it's a rare disease anyway.
Right.
What you have and what I have are rare diseases. Mm-hmm. They don't just pop up, in general, like diabetes or heart disease or things like that.
Yeah.
But what are you thinking about with your children? Are you thinking testing, or what are you thinking?
No, I'm not concerned about it with them, because mine was specifically diagnosed to be caused by strep throat. So because it was disease caused, that's not something that we've ever been concerned about with my own kids. So thankfully,
Yeah.
But, with my husband's mom having FSGS, so we've got that in the back. I do keep that in the back of my mind, because that's not always genetic, right? From what I understand.
No, it's not. It's primary, secondary, and genetic. And genetic is the least of all, percentage-wise, for diagnosis purposes.
Right. But
very
definitely,
hard. Yeah.
I would be aware.
Yeah.
A little more.
Yeah. And it's okay. Not to frighten you. I think it's very good. I thought about it with my kids. That's the first thing. First thing I said. I had 2 daughters, and I asked Dr. Mulgrew, I said, hey, dude, what are we going to do with my girls? And he said, watch them.
Yeah.
He said, there's no reason to think that this is genetic. If it is, and thank God it wasn't, because my brother gave me a kidney. So, if he'd have had it, we'd have been messed up.
Yeah.
So
that's
awesome.
So
in your heart, has it really gone good for you? You think about it. You think back, you've been transplanted now, right? Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that. But how do you feel in general? How do you feel emotionally, physically, in general? How do you feel?
Yeah. I feel like when I hear some other stories of what people have been through, I think I'm very thankful. And I feel like because I knew as a kid and had kidney disease throughout my life, it's like, it's been a gradual thing that's been there. Although I was told that, I may someday have to have a transplant, I may not ever have to. And so in the back of my mind, I always kind of hoped that, I won't have to.
Yes.
But they couldn't have told that, you don't know how things are going to go. And I do feel thankful that I've been given that notice, because a lot of people are, just kind of slapped in the face with, this is your situation now as an adult, and you have to deal with it, whether you're ready to or not. So I feel like having that growing up, I feel very thankful that that's been a thing in my life, I guess. I don't know if I feel great about the care as far as communication from doctors on what you should be aware of more so. And that's frustrating. Yeah. But I know that's a whole nother
topic, right? That's a whole nother topic. And we just stay on you has had issues with their doctors, and
Yeah.
I think it's just part of it.
Yeah.
They're not perfect, nor are we.
Right.
So, but I mean, if you have a difficulty, then it's nice to voice it so that it can be changed.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And
I mean,
that's the key.
my pediatric nephrologist was amazing, and I wish I could have stayed with him forever.
Yeah.
But that's the problem, is that, you know, you grow up and you have to
Yeah.
take over your care as an adult, and
Yeah.
finding the one you love just isn't always as easy. So,
No.
you know,
I've had 2. Can you believe that? Actually,
that's awesome.
well, no, actually I've had 4, but the 2 were in a 2 of them left because of a group practice. They were
Yeah.
just gone. But the one saved my life. The first one saved my life, and I still communicate with him.
That's
And
awesome.
he wanted me to stay in town here because it was 60 miles back and forth. He wanted me to get a physician here in town, so I didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
That's how kind he was.
That's awesome.
Okay, so tell me about your transplant.
Okay, so after I was approved and people started getting tested, we first got the call that my sister, she's my only sister, my older sister, was a perfect match. So that was very exciting, and we were kind of hoping for that. But as they did her further testing to make sure she was healthy enough to donate, they found out that she had kidney stones, and she didn't even know, but they were in both kidneys. And because of that, you know, it's not safe enough to allow her to transplant, and not healthy for me either, you know, if we were to try that. So she had to, so the day that she was told, her husband had actually been tested as well, my brother-in-law, and he was called and said that he was a good match. But then we were confused because he wasn't even the same blood type as me. I'm O positive and he was A positive. So we know that doesn't work. And so finding out later that day that he wasn't actually a match, it was just a big confusion.
Mess up.
So the emotional roller coaster that day was enough to just take us all out, I think.
Yeah.
So, so then we were kind of back to square one, and they kept testing people. My husband had been tested first, and he wasn't a match. And he was put into they were testing 5 at a time is what they were approved for with my insurance. And so he was kind of holding one spot, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And to keep him in line to possibly do a paired exchange.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we were I felt this rush because I wasn't on dialysis yet. And my kidney function at that point was probably, I think it was about 18, maybe GFR.
Oh, that's yeah.
So
Yeah.
I kind of just felt this, okay, like, let's keep testing. We've got to keep testing because I don't know how quickly this is going to go, you know? And
you sure don't.
Right. No.
You don't. You have no clue.
Right. So taking it in a little bit different direction, I was actually helping to plan the National Kidney Foundation walk here in Austin in 2017. And one of the ladies that I was organizing it with, she said, you need to meet David Rodriguez, because he works in San Antonio
University.
through university. Yep. And so at one of the NKF patient meetings, I was there, and I kind of grabbed him and met him, you know, and he was a great resource for me. And he I kind of told him what was going on, you know, and that people were being tested. And he actually put in a call to someone to kind of help us figure some things out, because I was confused as to why my husband was holding this spot when they weren't quite testing him. They hadn't even done his full testing to go through paired exchange or anything yet. And so I was getting frustrated that the spot was taken. I focused in on this and couldn't let it go. So anyway, he kind of helped get me in contact with people and at university, and we ended up kind of got the ball rolling some more, and they tested some of my closer family. And then they also tested my sister's best friend, who we've known for 25 years, actually since pretty much the year that I was diagnosed is when my sister met her. in school. And I got a call from her that she was my match. So that was awesome. She's real funny. I was crying when she called me, and she's like, "You're crying because this is good, right? Like, this is exciting."
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
"Yes, you just made my life, really, you know." So, but it was to the point where she had gotten a call and said, "When would be good for you?" And they had set the date, and she called me to tell me she was my match and said, "Is October 26th good for you?" I'm like, "Yes, any day,
Yeah.
whatever works for you." So, so that was great. She's like another sister to me, and someone that I, fully trusted. It was awesome to have her in that with me. And so that was only a month later from the time that I found out. And we had our surgery on October 26th of 2017. And we were together beforehand. Before the surgery, we had asked to be together that morning. And so that was great. I think as soon as they took her off to surgery, it kind of hit me, that everything that was happening. I think I was just go, get to the.
Yeah, you wanted to get there.
Yeah. And the day of surgery, my GFR was 12 that morning.
Yeah.
So I love the preemptive transplant. Anytime I can talk to someone about that, because a lot of people seem to be unaware of that, not as much probably these days, but, and I woke up feeling incredible. The moment I woke up from surgery, I felt like I was breathing clean air, and it's indescribable. Like I think because I had been sick for so long and just didn't realize what normal felt like.
Yep.
It was very new for me, and it was amazing.
It was all those adjustments that your body goes through, to anemia, to blood pressure, all those things that your body has to do to survive.
Yeah.
They go away almost instantaneously because you have blood supply and you have kidney function. And that's the joy of the transplant.
Yeah.
To speak to your point, my organization, Kidney Solutions, we spend a lot of time working. Matter of fact, we've kind of gotten into a lot of the preemptive stuff. Most of our folks, we're working with the nephrology community to identify folks with that.
That's awesome.
We try to get them a transplant before. We have had quite a few. I will say less than 10, but it's been very good.
Yeah.
I want to make a point to people who are listening. You don't want to erase your kidney function, your GFR. You don't want to see it slide. You want to get on it right away, because you don't know how precipitous it is, how fast it will happen.
Right.
And so consequently, go ahead.
I'm sorry. The healthier you are going into the surgery, the easier it is to recover as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The better the surgery goes, and you just have less complication or setback, not complication. And one of the things too, I noticed, I've been reading some of these posts like, I have how long can you wait until you need to go on dialysis or transplant? And they're talking their GFRs. People are talking my GFR 6, my GFR 7. You're in that range, you're sick, and you may not know it, but you better figure that out really quick, because as it goes down, the lower it gets, the sicker you get, and you don't know how fast or how sick you will get.
Right.
Some people at 19 are sicker than the ones at 6 and 5.
Right. Yeah.
So it shouldn't be a race to see how far you can go down. It should be a race to get his kidney as quickly as possible.
Right.
Do you agree?
Yes. And I was feeling really bad at that point. After we found out that my sister couldn't donate, I was set and ready to say at my next appointment, let's go ahead and get prepared for dialysis.
Yeah. You were going to bridge.
I was nauseous all the time. Yeah. I had headaches all the time. I fell asleep almost every day in the afternoon. Like I couldn't function as well as I should,
Yeah.
And I don't even know if I've taken a nap since my transplant. That's not a normal thing for me. But
as you get older, you'll take a nap. I love them.
I'm sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you mentioned David Rodriguez, and that was a
Yes.
good thing. It's nice to have someone that can advocate or, mentor for you, somebody
Right.
who's connected, and
Mhm.
those are good people to remember. So it's nice to have had him in your corner. And
Yes,
there are a lot
absolutely.
of people out there like that,
Mhm.
but you want to seek them out. If don't,
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing. Don't try to walk this walk by yourself. You're
Right.
walking it with Christ anyway, so you might as well bring in as many people as you can. Make the
Yes.
highway as crowded as you can. I think.
Yes.
I think that's my opinion. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's one thing that I think I've found that I enjoy probably the most is connecting with people um that are facing this type of thing.
right.
I've met a girl who she calls me her kidney mentor. I randomly met her. I was visiting a friend and at the hospital who had a baby, and I was going towards the elevator. And I typically, since my transplant, I'm very careful with touching doors and things like that. And I had grabbed the bottom of my sweater to push the elevator button because I do that frequently, just so I'm not touching
Yeah.
things. And her dad was with her, and he saw me and said, "Oh, don't touch that," or something, kind of joked. And I said, "Well, I just had a kidney transplant. It was 6 months at that time." I said, "I had a kidney transplant 6 months ago, and I'm just real careful with germs, so makes it easy for me." And he said he kind of didn't really say a whole lot, went back, and then his daughter came up to me, an adult, and she was like, "Did you just say you had a kidney transplant?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, can I talk to you real quick?" She was in town visiting someone. She was from Ohio, and she was in town visiting, and we connected. And I told her, "Here, meet me. Add me on Facebook," because she was fixing to get in a car. We had about 5 minutes quickly, and she has since had a transplant that was preemptive from a friend of hers. And um, I spent a couple hours on the phone one day with a friend of a friend who was having it. And I love it if people pass my name on and say, "Here,
Yeah. We love it.
I love it."
We love it too. And there are plenty of people out there. The word needs
Oh
to
yeah.
get around. So the more people that are talking about it, and
Mhm.
you refer people if you want to Kidney Solutions. We're free.
Okay.
We don't charge anything. All right. We do it all for free. So
Awesome.
be happy that you have some. And if you want a resource, I may have somebody in Austin. Matter of fact, I have 2 patients in Austin. Had I known this, I might have connected you with them. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I try to match up. We have a patient that was just transplanted at UTMB, and she
Mhm.
works with me out through UTMB. And
Okay.
we're trying to be key in on preemptive transplant.
Well,
We
keep
won't
me
turn
as a
anyone
resource.
away.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
keep me as a resource. I'm more
Oh,
than willing to talk to people.
I've already got it in the bank here. You will be getting a call.
Sounds good.
Jason will tell you that later on. He's, once I've talked to you, you're pretty much had.
Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah.
I
Well,
love helping, and where I can.
think about that whole process of helping. That's what you're here for.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you one thing. When I first was transplanted, I was raising a family. I did this for my family. I would have, if I'd not done that, I couldn't have raised it. You're in the same position. Jason's in the same position. And I'll tell you, like I've told him, there's one priority in life right now for you, and that's for you to take care of yourself and your family.
Right.
You have to be your own best advocate. We know that. But the most important thing is you have to be healthy in order to take care of your family. Right. So all the other stuff is frills. It's fun. Mm-hmm. But this business of taking care of yourself is the most important.
Right.
If you can take that away from our conversation, that's good, because it's been a struggle for me through my life to realize that. I'm glad I did catch on. I had a physician that helped me with it. So,
yeah.
Okay. So tell me the best thing that's happened since you've had the transplant. What has been the best possible thing that happened to you?
I think just feeling like, I don't think I ever felt like, I'm not living my best life, but I just felt like it really gave me that purpose to just give it my all, because there's not any other, this is the time.
Yes.
So going back to school has been fun for me, something that I appreciate, and I'm hoping that someday, as a child life specialist, I can help kids who are in the same situation of being diagnosed with something and it being scary, and helping support them, their psychosocial support network, to help them cope and understand what's happening with them, so that they don't, forget, but they are more aware of a better way of dealing with things.
Do you know Ed Drake?
I don't think so. I'm not familiar.
After this, I'm going to be interviewing him.
Okay.
He has the YNOTT, YNOTT organization.
Okay.
It's a
I've
foundation.
heard of that through you.
It's out in DC, out in that area. I think he's from Ohio.
Okay.
I don't want to mess it up, but I want you to go on ynot.org.
Okay.
You write that down. Why not? YNOTT.org. All right. I want you to connect with that organization just for it'll be a good thing for you both ways. They deal with pediatric transplant.
Okay.
And he has a fantastic organization. And I think it would, you may need to do something in your educational process that he could allow you to do that would help you with your studies. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
That'd be great. Thank you for that.
You try that. Yeah. And his name is Ed Drake III, and he'll have a podcast. I'm gonna grill him really hard because he's a good friend, and I want to get that out. Pediatric transplants are getting more and more. I mean, there's more happening.
And even though I didn't have one as a kid myself, it's just a very special place. It has a very special place in my heart.
Right. But he works also with people, not only just in transplants, with diseases like ours, FSGS, and like your disease process, and when they're diagnosed early. And that's what they're trying to do, to try to get people diagnosed earlier and earlier, especially the kids. He concentrates solely on kids and then gets them prepared to be an adult. You spoke to that, remember?
Yeah.
It's that transition from childhood into adulthood doesn't happen like that. It's a transition, and they try to ease that transition, make that transition better.
Okay.
For people. You fit right in. I mean, I think it's good to. It's funny how God works. Here he put me backing up two people in my life, and I can connect them. So I think it'll be great.
Yeah,
he's an awesome guy.
Good.
Yeah. All right. Tell me if there's anything that we've forgotten to talk about. Excuse me.
I don't think so. I just I don't know if I really have anything else.
No, you probably don't. I think we covered a lot.
Yeah.
But I do know you have something in your heart to talk about the emotions of all this whole process, and to tell people that it's okay to be emotional at this stage of life. Because I want you to know that it is okay. And it gets better, but it doesn't go away. 33 years I've had my kid in, and I'll still sit in church and something will come over me and it'll sweep me. I call it, and I'll tear up. It's okay.
Oh yeah.
That's what you have to do. It's almost like a purge, and it's okay.
Oh, right? I mean, it definitely hits me, when you be walking sometimes and just thinking about what Shay has done for me, it blows you away.
It does. And it's okay. I didn't want to bring you to tears, but you're going to do that anyway. It's just that what you're doing on your own. And I will tell you that it's been a pleasure, an absolute pleasure. And I hope we can keep up the relationship, because we can help a lot of people.
Yes.
That's our goal, right?
Great to meet you guys.
Okay, folks, you know the drill now. You've heard a really nice story, and there are a bunch of them on the podcast. But I just want to leave you with something here. Now we're going in, and when you listen to this, we're still in this phase where we're meeting a bad enemy in this COVID. I want you to pay attention. Don't give in to thinking everything's okay, because it's not. We got flu season on us, and I want you to pay attention. I want you to protect yourself. If you can't protect yourself, you're going to get sick. And if you get sick, your chances of having something very serious are really, it can come to fruition real quick for you. So pay attention. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Your own obligation is to yourself. You make and do what you need to do to stay healthy. Okay, Lindsay, we're working towards the end of the project here, and it's been a great time. I've really enjoyed talking to you. But I do remember that you said that you'd had more than one biopsy. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes, I had 4 as a kid, and then after my transplant, since my transplant, I've had 3 in total.
Okay, that's a lot of poking. And I don't know if anybody out there has ever experienced a biopsy, but it's not, number one, it's not fun. Number 2, it's painful. And
Right.
Number 3, it's very anxiety producing. But let's cut to the chase. Why is it that they had to biopsy you? Why is that?
So about 3 weeks after my transplant, my creatinine started climbing a little bit, and my doctor was trying to be, cautious and check everything out. And so he sent me for a biopsy to see what was going on. And it came back that I had an acute rejection episode going on. And he decided to admit me, and they did 3 days of IV antibiotics, and then they put me on a high dose steroid taper for a few months. And after that, we redid another biopsy to make sure that the rejection had stopped and that there wasn't any further damage. And thankfully, that was the case. Although during that time, you have to stay afterwards for a while to make sure that there's no bleed. And I did have a little bit of a bleed and had to end up staying overnight for that one. And then I guess a couple months later, my creatinine climbed again, actually higher than it had been with rejection. And so to be cautious, my doctor sent me for another one. And thankfully, everything came back normally with that one. And I guess it was just a fluke in my labs. So you just never know. But, they were being cautious with me since it had happened before.
33 years I've had my brother's kidney.
Mm-hmm.
I've had one biopsy, and that's for initial diagnosis.
That's awesome.
I've been blessed. Now I want people to understand out here, this is not the end of the world to have a biopsy, is it?
No. And the rejection is a scary word as well,
Exactly.
But I learned to understand that that's not always the end of the world. It's not something you want to hear at all, but it can be taken care of in a sense, and you can still be okay. And I didn't know that when I first read it.
You're novel. This is the first time through it, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I've always said that kidney disease, it's so silent and everything, but your only options are to listen, you hear what's going on, and then do what you can to do about it. There's not really anything that you can just go over to the shelf and pull off another kidney, or go pull up a can of, make you better medicine. It just doesn't work that way. It's a constant adjustment, right?
Right.
Just a constant adjustment. And so just to kind of clear things up, when they do a biopsy, take a little piece of tissue and they look under the microscope, and they'll see whether there's been changes, and they can detect rejection.
Right.
So the report comes back, okay, there is signs of rejections, and they tell you what, like an FSGS, you got glomerular stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
The point I wanted to make, how did you take that news when they said, okay, we think you're having some rejection? What went through your mind?
I was terrified, because this was 3 weeks after my transplant. And
3 weeks.
Yeah. And I just, you just want to hold on to it and not let anything happen, and knowing that I hadn't done anything wrong. And that's, I think, something to point out too, because, you can do everything right. And sometimes your body is like, hold up a minute, and what is this,
Right.
Because you're constantly trying to, you take those medications to suppress your immune system to make sure that your body doesn't recognize this foreign object and keeps you going. So
I think that's probably the best way to explain it. Terrified.
yeah.
I can't think of anything worse a transplant patient could experience than to be told, you know what, you're having some problem with rejection. And I know how your doctor says it. They are probably different in how they present it. The whole point is that you're fractured. You go, now what? And what did I do? Why did this happen to me?
Right.
Right.
And you're nervous every single time you get your lab work done.
Oh yeah.
Because you just hope that everything's normal like usual. But again, you don't want to get in that habit of expecting that, because, you just never know.
Yeah. I think we've done a service to the kidney community, because I know people are going to reject. They're going to have difficulties with rejection. But the thing of it, like you've explained here, you freak out and then you deal with it. Because
Right.
freaking out's one thing, but if you don't want to deal with it, then you're going to have difficulty. So
Yeah.
I think in general, if it were me and I was experiencing it, I hope I could handle it like you did. I mean, that's amazing. It really is, because it's scary. I've had several friends who've experienced it.
Yeah.
Praise God, I haven't. So that's just the way it is.
I hope you never do.
Really. Okay. So can you think of anything else we've missed?
No, not this time.
I can't think of anything. All I can think of is the chance I got to talk to you, and you're in Austin. I hope that we can connect. I hope we can do some things together. I would really like to see that happen in the kidney space. So we'll be talking to you. Okay. So folks, let me just bring you back into the sphere here. We're going to keep doing these podcasts, and if you want to just go on the podcast site and go ahead and subscribe to us and make a comment and give us an idea of what we can do. And if you're interested in coming on the show, we'd be sure happy to have you. We're looking for anybody in the kidney space. So until then, thank you again, Lindsay, and let's keep breathing.